Hello and welcome. This is a special Super Bowl edition of the Onside Kick, brought to you by Fox Sports Australia. I'm your host, Chris Janssen, and with me, as always, as he has been every week for the past 25 weeks, is my good friend Ted Smith. He must be feeling over the moon. I think the party has finally worn off a little bit since Monday. How are you doing, Ted?
I'm good, mate. Quite a good Monday. Chicken wings and Super Bowl rings. This is a great result. A lot of relief for the boys. The wonder kid, Sean McVay, a lot of pressure on his shoulders because of how many plaudits he'd received without actually winning anything of merit. But that's all gone now. He is a Super Bowl winning coach at the age of 36. Which is amazing. And
there are probably a few listeners right now older or around the age of 36 questioning exactly what they have also achieved.
Yeah.
We're up in that conversation too, mate. So
yeah, moving on.
We will be talking mostly about the Super Bowl. The pod is back to its roots this week, I want to say, back to how it all began. Those listeners who've been with us from the very beginning may remember...
You eight legends.
That awkward Q&A style we had for weeks 1 to 5. It's back.
Let's see if we've evolved at all.
Exactly. Without Hugo here prodding us along, I am a bit disappointed. It means I won't be able to inspire too much heated debate between the two of you. But let's get into it because it was a fantastic Super Bowl. We travelled to SoFi Stadium. It was yet another home/not home Super Bowl appearance for a team. Los Angeles against the Cincinnati Bengals in Super Bowl 56. So much build-up, as always, through the week. As Speedy talked about last week, I really love that 2 weeks to get into it. You get so much hype and fanfare to have all the players doing interviews, all the dressing and everything, how they arrive. It was such an exciting day. Were you nervous on the day, or did you think it looked like all roads were still pointing to LA, hopefully being able to get the job done?
I didn't get nervous until Matt Stafford's second interception. If I'm being honest, that's when I got nervous.
The 2 plays in the start of the second half, the first 2 plays.
Yeah, it's not the bang-bang play that you want. The first bang being that 75-yard touchdown by T. Higgins, then the next bang being an interception. But then the story of the second half and the Super Bowl started there, because if the Bengals go triple bang, touchdown, mate, it is a slippery slope from there. But that's when the Rams D started saying, okay, if we're going to win this, we're going to have a large say in this result. And they did. Yeah,
it was almost classic cliche, beware, but game of 2 halves, basically, because the first one was much more what we anticipated, I think. Very exciting out of the blocks, good offensive talent. The Rams especially were fast. OBJ started the hottest. He's probably started a match for the past couple of seasons.
Since New York, it felt like.
Yeah, unfortunately then ultimately the ACL injury, we'll get a bit more onto OBJ, but yeah, like you said, it was so fast to start with, and then all of a sudden it kind of slowed down and it slotted into the end of the second half, the end of the second quarter for the Cincy. It slotted into their game plan a bit more, and then after that quick start at the start of the second half, the Rams slowly just edged it back, and it was a bit more of a grind, middling up the field, back and forth.
On that first half, Taylor put his cojones on the coffee table early. That 4th and 1, which they failed to get near the halfway mark, and then the Rams find Cooper Kupp in the end zone to go up 7-0, and I was like, well, this is perfect. This is great. And on that 4th and 1, the Bengals could not get 1 yard all game. Think of the last couple of plays, the Joe Burrow sack, non-sack, fling, which is almost exactly how the NFC Championship game finished, with Donald getting to Garoppolo. The only difference was that fling pass found a defensive back of the Rams. But yeah, they needed a 3-and-1, a 4-and-1, and then they could not get that 1 yard. The biggest play of the game that will be forgotten within a matter of months was that 4th and 1 of the Rams on their own 30 in that which is already a famous drive by Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp. But the biggest play before the touchdown wasn't a reception; it was his rush,
the jet sweep,
which the Rams used to build their offense around when they had Todd Gurley and a young Cooper Kupp, though. Those bodies in motion, Robert Wood as well, who missed this game, unfortunately, through injury. But they hadn't lent on it all year. And then in the biggest of big spots. The jet sweep for Cooper Kupp, man, I was, almost headbutted the roof when I jumped with that one.
I think maybe that was partially as a result of Cam Akers was relatively ineffective.
Completely ineffective.
Yeah, I think he had 2 first downs runs throughout the entire game.
Well, they rushed for 30 yards off 19 carries as a team, and they got 8 yards off one rush in that fourth quarter to get the first down. According to PFF, it is the second worst rush win rate of any team since 2006. Wow. That's how ineffective that was. And I heard some NFL pundits say that they should have left the run. Look what Matt Stafford did with Kupp, just flinging the ball in the fourth quarter. But to that, I would say, look what happened in Super Bowl 53.
Yeah.
When the Pats stopped the run and then McVay went away from the run and said, okay, we're going to rely on our quarterback to get us points. They scored 3. So he wasn't going to let that happen again. He stayed true to his game plan, stuck to his guns. And some people will push back saying it wasn't McVay's perfect game, but if you win the Super Bowl, it's pretty close to perfect.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, 2 things we were sort of touched on briefly there. The Cooper Kupp jet sweep, where as soon as it was snapped, it was one of those where he was through.
Yeah, but he had to shake. He slowed the shake and bake.
The defensive end was through, and you're like, wow, this is going to be the lamest end to a drive ever. A jet sweep where he just gets sacked through the middle. It happens every time you play Madden and you want to run a jet sweep. The other thing on the other side of Cam Akers, I'm going to say, was Henderson actually had an extremely impressive game, particularly in a receiving role. I'm not sure if that's Akers is just not as talented as a receiving back, but Henderson had those 2 huge go routes down the sideline, which when you're missing someone like OBJ, to be able to put your
and Higbee as well, they were missing.
To put your second choice running back in, to make that sort of play down the wing, and Stafford, obviously, as he has all playoffs, just put it on his chest twice in stride.
But yeah, the game ended with how you'd want a Rams Super Bowl win to end, with Aaron Donald just taking over that game. Burrow dropped back 21 times in the second half. He got sacked 6. That's a terrible ratio for a young quarterback. He got sacked 70 times this season, including the playoffs. No quarterback has ever made the Super Bowl being sacked more than 50. So he is impressive, but on the Bengals, that it is clear what they need to do moving forward, and that's just protect the kid. But yeah, Aaron Donald. Not enough people are mentioning Von Miller. I gave you a guessing game before we came on the pod, which player has had the most sacks over the last 8 games of the season, including the playoffs, and you got it absolutely right. It's Von Miller. And as I told you then, he was quiet at the Broncos because they were always behind. Didn't get opportunities to sack the quarterback, not like he has since he's arrived at the Rams and since he's got hot. And obviously a lot of single team coverage on him because he's got the beast. Aaron Donald just owning the fourth quarter in the NFC Championship game and then owning the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl.
That tandem in specific I wanted to talk about because it's not just that you have 2 fantastic defensive tackles / defensive ends. It's the fact that they complement each other so perfectly. You've got Aaron Donald, the bull rush extraordinaire, coming straight through the middle with 2 or 3 people on him. That's fine. If the quarterback escapes and is getting around the edge, you've got lightning fast Von Miller at whatever age he's still at those speeds, escaping from pressure and getting to them. And it was the exact type of sack that Von Miller is known for, beating someone round the edge with a nice move, ankles tackle at full stretch to bring the quarterback down in the backfield. Yeah, Miller has been extremely impressive, just like OBJ, since it's amazing what happens when you put good players in a good team, mate. It's almost incredible.
Some great moves from the GM and the coach. It's like, they have to win if they're bringing in all these free agents. Like, well, they did. And guess what? Their 2 best players on the day weren't free agents. They drafted Cooper Kupp in the 3rd round, and they drafted Aaron Donald amongst a bunch of other first-round picks that we got via Washington with the RG3 trade.
And we were also talking that 3rd and 1, those last 2 plays of the game, well, besides the kneel downs, that Aaron Donald tackle on 3rd and 1, where he basically bicep curled Joe Mixon and prevented him from getting through for the first down. That was probably individually the most important play of the game. And the 4th down, where he got to him again, And you must have been a little bit nervous. There was a split second there where it looked like old mate P. Ryan might have been able to get on the end of that. Yeah.
Considering he was like spinning around and getting like manhandled by an absolute monster. But that 3rd and 1 play, what running back was it? Was it P. Ryan?
No, it was Mixon who
it was Mixon that he pulled back.
Yeah.
Well, he went from thinking that, you know, he might be turning the game in his team's favour to just like being emasculated like, rapidly. That was crazy.
The fact that it went from all he needed to do was fall forward, and Aaron Donald on both knees with a single arm around him was still strong enough to be able to just hold him there.
He's a beast. And then, like on Aaron Donald, he's got the Super Bowl. He's got 3 defensive MVPs. I think he's made NFL first team defense 6 times. Surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. And now there's chat about him retiring. It would make sense because he has accomplished everything, and he could retire today and people would put him in the conversation for best defensive players of all time. Before I tell you what I think it's about, what do you reckon? You reckon he's a chance?
Personally, this always sort of happens. As soon as someone wins a Super Bowl, everyone seems to hold a microscope over all of the old-ish players because everyone likes the narrative of retiring after a Super Bowl win. If the Rams had have lost, no one would have brought this up. Donald would have played on. But I think the fact that he has won and the fact that he's been so dominant, it's almost like he doesn't really have much left to prove. He does seem like a loyal man, and the fact that he spent his whole career with LA, and he is relatively young by today's standards at least. And given something else we were mentioning before we came on was they've just built this team, and we've heard it so much. I'm almost sick of the cliche of how much the Rams have put all of their chips in. We're all aware, we get it. Yes, they went all in on this.
It's what every team should do if you want to win a Super Bowl. Put all your chips in.
Exactly. You don't need draft picks if you need to win now. So the fact that they've got this team, and considering Donald is a captain and a figure like that there, for me, I can't imagine that one specifically, and especially, which is where I guess you're also going, the chat around McVay too. Yeah. Both of them to me seem, at this point, unlikely.
Perfect, mate. Like, here's my take. They're in LA, right? They're still trying to break into that market. They had a Super Bowl home game. They had NFC Championship game at home, and neither of those games did they have fan superiority in that crowd.
Exactly.
They're still trying to crack that market. And now is a good time with the Clippers and the Lakers both struggling, right? I guarantee you the most hit stories on NFL.com or any sports site that talks about the NFL are the McVay and the Donald retirements or potential retirements. They will be the most clicked on stories. And if you flick over to ESPN or Fox Sports, you'll see that the chat now in terms of American sport has rapidly changed to basketball. But this will keep the LA Rams, Aaron Donald and Sean McVay in the headlines for 2, 3, 4 weeks, which is what they want. Yeah. No, Aaron Donald knows where he sits. And yes, if he retires today, he will be in the conversation for best ever. But if he's who I think he is, and for anyone that just separates themselves from the best in the world, right? You got to have that dog, and I think he wants to separate himself in that argument. Yeah. And if he's going to do that, he has to play 3 or 4 more years, and all he has to do is keep doing what he's doing, because soon the numbers will be undeniable for a defensive tackle to have as many sacks and quarterback disruptions as a defensive end, right? And he's so good at sacking the quarterback, you forget that he's really good at annihilating a offensive run game as well. So, and on McVay, you can't retire at 36. Come on, bro. And he right in front of him is like the career and potential legacy that you want as a head coach. Yep. 36, you've been to 2 Super Bowls, you've played 5 seasons, and your worst season, you didn't make the playoffs, but that was still 9-7. Like, you haven't had a losing record. It's all in front of you. Stafford's 34, but Brady's 11 years older than him, and he just threw the most touchdowns this season. Yep. So if he looks after himself, he can play for at least 4 or 5 more years. And there's lots of unsung heroes on that team. And look at what the Rams do with 3rd, 4th round picks. They turn them into superstars. Cooper Kupp, a 3rd round pick. has just joined Jerry Rice as the only wide receiver to win Offensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl MVP, and claim the Triple Crown. Something Jerry Rice didn't do was do it in the one season. In one season, Cooper Kupp has managed to become, hands down, the best third-round wide receiver of all time.
Quite comfortably.
Right, and he has been coached up by that team. So, you know, Sean McVay has complete faith in himself, and I know there aren't many of us, Rams fans, but Rams fans have complete trust in Sean McVay, and he's not going anywhere, dude.
I think, on the topic of McVay specifically, I think we all understand that it seems to be set up that it wouldn't surprise me at all if he does retire young. But there's a difference between
44s.
Exactly. There's a difference between him making it to mid-40s and having 3 or 4 Super Bowls under his belt and being done with it at 36 with just one victory. I think what's more likely for Sean McVay personally is that eventually he will stay there, probably not too long. I can't imagine him staying in head coaching for too long, but soon enough he will move into a role like GM. Or
the booth.
Yeah.
Or the booth. He'd be a freak in there, mate.
That's true. Yeah.
You'd have to have him on a word count. There's a chance he'd be a bit like, I can handle McVay for 2.5 quarters. I love him. But it's just brrr.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'd be good at that. That's the chat, apparently. Following that Gruden path.
Yep. Yeah, and I can see that. I think he'd be good for something like that, but I don't think he's done.
Okay, Gruden path that stops at
of course
the broadcast.
I got what you meant.
Yeah, thank you, mate.
Yeah, I can't see it personally for McVay, but I think it'll be sooner than you'd perhaps anticipate.
Well, it'll be sooner than everyone else if he retires in his 40s.
Yeah, and he'll have done a lot more than everyone else in that time as well. Let's go back to OBJ quickly. I want to talk about that. He was so electric, got the first touchdown of the game, looked the goods, was hitting these nice little cross-seam routes. Stafford perfectly hitting him in stride as well. And then, as we always say, the ACL injury, non-contact, as soon as it happened, you could see that, them holding that little space just around the knee, not quite on the knee. And I think we all had a suspicion.
We've watched a lot of sport, mate.
We didn't want it to, but you could tell that that's what had happened. Such a shame because it looked like he was on for a really big game. I mean, he still had a great game.
He went for 100 yards in the NFC Championship game as well. It was shaping up to be his game because we saw how they were marking Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
And which was effective until the fourth quarter. He only had 4 receptions until that last drive.
Where he caught one every throw.
Yeah. But I think the biggest compliment you can give OBJ is the Rams would not have won the Super Bowl if they did not sign him. The NFC Championship, which was a close run affair, Rams win that by a single score late. He was massive. He scored a touchdown versus Arizona. I know that game was a blowout. And then, he had over, I think, close to 50 yards in the first half of the Super Bowl and a touchdown. So yeah, correction. I'm not sure if the first touchdown was OBJ's or Cooper Kupp's. But yeah, anyway, like I said, the Rams don't win without OBJ. And it's unfortunate that it's the same. It looks like it's the same knee that's kept him out previously. And, I'll be curious all offseason to see what the Rams do with OBJ. If they look at keeping him.
That's what I was going to ask.
Because there's a market.
Next?
There's a market.
You've got, the best wide receiver in the game and potentially of the last 5 seasons in your team. You've also got Bobby Trees coming back, who is also an exceptional receiver. You've got Van Jefferson, these other guys that are role players. How does OBJ fit into that? Because now it's a big contract year, right?
Yeah.
And he's coming off another ACL injury, which is different to just the first ACL injury, for example.
But he didn't miss any football this season because of it, and 6 months time span means that he should be back to be able to handle most of next year's load. Obviously, he'll miss a preseason. But in terms of fitting in with the Rams, as a Rams fan, yum.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. Woods, OBJ, and Kupp, and Higbee's big for the Rams as well. But yeah, you look around the league, and OBJ, the player, makes sense on heaps of teams. He could really help the Ravens.
Or the Patriots.
Or given how much Lamar Jackson struggles with the zone, OBJ's a great receiver against the zone. He showed that since he got to the Rams. But it's not just OBJ, the play you're getting.
Yeah.
You're getting OBJ, the whole show.
The fanfare.
The roller coaster, the ups, the downs. That's why he's perfect in LA. He's nowhere near the biggest name there.
Yep.
But if he goes to Baltimore, it would be Lamar and OBJ.
Which is, I think, what a bit of the problem was in Cleveland, especially having come from New York.
Exactly, mate. But again, on the Rams, you've got... It's not that he's not the... It's not just that he's not the biggest star there. The biggest stars there set the tone for the LA Rams. Cooper Kupp, he couldn't show his eyes during the MVP speech because he was so humbled, dude. Like, so appreciative and didn't feel warranted. Where OBJ, even if he got it for the first half, it would have been like, yeah, fair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the Rams are the perfect environment for the personality that comes with OBJ.
Yeah. As a result of OBJ going down, that meant little-known rookie Ben Skowronek was how they were saying it on the telecast. I wouldn't have looked at that spelling and thought that's what I'd go with. But, yeah, Ben Skowronek, who obviously had the big moment to start the second half where he dropped the ball straight into the arms of the Cincinnati defender. And as you say, that could have been significantly worse because they went down the field and were only held to a field goal from about the 30-yard line. That was a massive moment in the game. He did come back, Big Ben, and get himself another little reception later. But the unsung hero for me...
The tight end.
Yeah, which we talked about Kendall Blanton, who got most of the reps at backup tight end last week once Higbee went down. And this time, Bryson Hopkins. I'd literally never heard his name before until they said it, catching a pass in the Super Bowl.
I got a feeling Blanton's lack of production may have hurt a few prop bets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Was there any scoop on that? Did Blanton get hurt?
I think it's as simple as McVay liked what he saw out of the kid over the last 2 weeks. I can't see any other reason.
Yep.
Because it's not like Blanton did a job in the NFC Championship game and when he needed to throughout the season, which was minuscule. But given that we hadn't seen much of Blanton, obviously he hadn't seen much of either of these two tight ends, and I can't see why you'd go with one kid over the other outside of him being a better fit for your team.
Yeah, perfectly said. 4 receptions for 47 yards. He'll remember that forever. What a
day, mate! What a day!
Whatever the rest of his career.
A month ago, it was just like, I hope one day I'll get some proper game time with the Rams. Super Bowl. A month later, crazy.
Got his ring. Obviously, he was a little bit outperformed by, as we touched on quite a lot, Cooper Kupp, that incredible year. Let's look at the other side of the ball because there were a few...
But before we go, you said his name, Cooper Kupp. I just got one more.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I'm here for Cooper Kupp stats all day, baby.
Matt Stafford, his passer rating to Cooper Kupp in the fourth quarter, not just in the Super Bowl, but throughout the playoffs, was 158.3, which is perfect.
Yep.
Boom. That's not a bad connection.
Yeah, there's something about that, isn't that? We've always, each successful team has to have that. They has to have that kind of weird, perfect connection between one of the wide receivers.
At least one. Yeah.
It's not too long ago as well, 2 to 3 years ago, we were talking about, and the same way when you draft in fantasy, Bobby Trees and Cooper Kupp were at the same point.
Yeah.
It was a toss-up on which one of them you thought was just going to have a better year.
Yeah.
I think that decision's probably been made now going forward.
Yeah, because Goff was being told to pass to both wide receivers equally, and Stafford's been told to quarterback.
And he's trusted to make those decisions.
Exactly.
On the other side of the ball, we've talked about a lot of the Rams players. Obviously, we may as well touch on the winners first. I want to say Joe Burrow, without being super impressive, was solid. For a second-year quarterback, he was relatively solid. No turnovers.
He wasn't daunted.
Exactly. He looked... There was only... I noticed this right when they flashed on his face after Donald was doing his lovely gesture towards his a certain finger. Yeah, of course. There was one moment where it cut to Burrow, and it was like 4 frames where he looked shattered. And then almost like the ticker went off, like, nah, got to be cool.
Yeah.
Show Cincy that I'm all about it. It just flicked back to like normal, that Terminator look, and he walked back to the sideline as he knew he'd lost the Super Bowl. It does not hang on him. There was nothing to indicate that it was his problem.
Hangs on the guys that were meant to protect him.
Absolutely, because I was going to say, you look around, the other skill positions, Mixon and Higgins went crazy. Mixon, 15 rushes for 72 yards. That is a serious average, and 1 of 1 throwing for a touchdown.
Big day.
Good day for him. Higgins had 2 touchdowns on only 4 receptions for 100 yards. I mean, 60 of those came from a play that maybe shouldn't have stood. I definitely thought he had his fingers within the face mask.
Yeah.
Whether he pulled him hard enough to actually throw him to the ground.
It was a face mark. You got to consider the time, like where the ball was when that happened too. It's as Ramsey's about to make a play on the ball.
And the fact that his other hand was sort of like push-off basketball style. And you've got your fingers in his face mask.
It's hard to do anything when your head's getting yanked.
And that's normally the most obvious call for the line judge who's standing right there to see, because you see someone's head unexpectedly 180.
It happens, but that's part of the reason why you throw it up there. You might get away with one of those ones.
So, Higgins, though, was the beneficiary of that. They had a few great performances. I don't think the Bengals can be too disheartened other than the fact that they couldn't get it done and they were so close. It looked like it was setting up for that fourth quarter final drive to go. I was expecting OT. I figured that was just the way it was going to go after this crazy season we'd had.
Yeah.
The story is that Aaron Donald had something different to say about that. On the topic of Aaron Donald, mate, where does he now rank as one of the all-time defensive tackles? Are we jumping too early on this hype train, or is he fully deserving? Should he be considered?
I mean, if you're talking defensive tackles, he's the best ever. But LT was a defensive end. That's the person that jumps to mind in terms of the impact they had on games and on the NFL. Donald isn't the character that LT was. But, just complete wrecking balls that the opposition, when they're coming up with a game plan to try and take on the Rams' defense, they just write his name first. Like Aaron Donald. Like Joe Burrow, his great season was, you think about the big Jamar Chase games, it's when Burrow could drop back and unleash. You can't drop back against Aaron Donald.
Not unless you value your kneecaps anyway.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's massive, dude, on a game plan. Where your game plan is just like, okay, we can't play the way we'd like to because Aaron Donald is on the other side and our offensive line is putrid. It really is. You need to mention it heaps. And there's talk about the Bengals going 1, 2, 3 offensive line in the next year's draft. It's like, go 4, 5, 6 in case those first 3 miss. You might find a sleeper.
Yeah, one of them will turn out.
But the fact that he is the be all and end all when it comes to beating the Rams defense. It speaks volumes. And you're not just talking about a game against Arizona. You're talking about the NFC Championship game, and you're talking about the Super Bowl. And when he was quiet in the last Super Bowl, they didn't win, which adds to what I'm saying. If you can stop Aaron Donald, you can beat the Rams. If you can't stop him, you're going to struggle in the fourth quarter. And that's when games are won and lost.
It's so difficult to do positionally without doing positionally, I should say.
It's just like effect on the game. You know what I mean? What effect did they have on the game? And it's
then
Aaron
where do
Donald.
you put Aaron Donald in the all-time chat?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm biased, obviously. But like I said before, he just has to keep on doing what he's doing. And if he retires at 34, 35, it's not going to be a wrong answer. It can't be. You know, you're going to have arguments for other people, and I'm open to those discussions. They're fun. But Aaron Donald, he's inching ever so closer to never being a wrong answer when you throw his name in the conversation for he is the best defensive player of all time, which means he's one of the top 5 NFL players of all time.
It's so easy in that sort of GOAT debate to get, because of how much influence a quarterback can have on a game, and that makes sense. But when you then have someone who's not in that position who can occasionally make that much difference on a game as well from a position like Aaron Donald, deserves all of the respect and plaudits that are coming his way.
And now he's got the ring.
And now he's got the ring, which he made a show of pointing to a couple of games in a row. And
he was actually saying, go get it now. Go fetch it. Get it on here. It's been coming.
And I love a few of the other boys in that photo that are getting around to support him.
Yeah, the 91 from Wisconsin, which I should know his name.
But God, he looks happy. They're all happy for Aaron.
Oh, what a day.
Let's also talk about the other big chat I'd like to have. We've talked Aaron Donald, we've talked Cooper Kupp. Let's talk a bit of Matthew Stafford, because it now seems to have opened up a bigger can of worms about him. The fact that he has now won the Super Bowl in the first year, it's made a bunch of other people come out and be like, well, yeah, the Rams just have a really good team, or, oh, well, yeah, Detroit were just shit. And it's like, it's not that simple. How good is Stafford in this sense? Richard Sherman came out and said that he didn't think Matt Stafford would be deserving of going to the Hall of Fame. He listed things like he's only ever had one All-Pro first team.
Because of the Lions.
He'd only ever made one Super Bowl because of the Lions.
Oh, yeah. Well, and because of the Rams, because he went there. But yeah.
And, he has a losing record. These are the sort of stats that people start to throw around about Matt Stafford. You, as someone who has probably watched him much more closely this year compared to his years at the Lions, where I'm guessing you watched him too. Hall of Fame chat come to second for me. Where do you think, though, how fair is it to say that Stafford is undeserving of all of this praise that he's getting and that it was just bound to happen because of the team he was in?
Well, I can understand the chat around it, even though it's not warranted. It's not like Matt Stafford's banging the table saying, hey, I should get a gold jacket.
Yeah.
But when it's like people talk about Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's going to be a Hall of Famer, right?
Wow.
Like Matt Ryan, he is.
Probably,
because his numbers are going to be undeniable. He's going to retire like top 9, top 10, or he's already ninth all time in touchdowns, so 367. So there's going to be a cutoff number. If you reach 400 touchdowns, you're probably going to be a Hall of Famer. It's just too many. Matt Stafford is probably going to reach there. He's already Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Phillip Rivers, Dan Marino, Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Ryan, Eli Manning, Frank Tarkenton. They're the only players ahead of him in terms of most touchdowns. Every one of them is in the Hall of Fame or will be. You can push back on Eli, you can push back on Phillip Rivers, but they're going to be.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be. So, and Matt Stafford isn't done yet. He's going to, and I know the game's changed, but that's why I say the number 400. It's undeniable.
Yeah.
And then you look at his bad seasons. Look at what the Lions did without Matt Stafford. Right, 3 wins. That would have. I don't think he had many seasons that bad. 1 or 2 for sure after Calvin Johnson left, and they had no outs. But they made the playoffs as the worst franchise in football, which they are. They're the worst franchise in football. They made the playoffs because of Matt Stafford. The Rams bring in Matt Stafford and they win the Super Bowl because of Matt Stafford.
Yep.
That no-look pass in the fourth quarter to Cooper Kupp, where it wasn't window dressing, it was completely necessary to hold off the defensive back. Mate, that's Cooper Kupp as well. That's what we were talking about earlier, that chemistry those two share. Like the cojones. Not many people can make that throw. So, yes, the win tally, not for him. But there is another quarterback in the Super Bowl era that doesn't have a winning percentage that is in the Hall of Fame, Joe Namath. But the other things like stats, what did he do when he was in a winning system? How was he in the crunch? Since 2009, no quarterback has more fourth quarter winning drives than he does.
Yep.
In the playoffs, no quarterback has more fourth quarter drives in the playoffs in one playoff series than Matt Stafford. I got there. He's tied Eli Manning with 3. So, and the thing is, he ain't done yet.
Yeah.
Well, NFC Championship next year, right? Then his playoffs numbers are going to look really good. He's already got a winning record in the playoffs. 1 year of the Rams, 4-3. It was 0-3 coming in here. So to say he definitely won't make it, I think you're not looking at the whole picture.
Yeah. I think, in a way, the Hall of Fame has almost turned more into. It doesn't have to be about winningest or greatest. Hall of Fame is sometimes more of an appreciation for the guys that were really great, but maybe never had that chance.
Yeah.
You've got different debates and different MVP awards and things like that for the guys that also go through and win in those seasons, and everyone remembers them. There's no doubt that those guys will also make the Hall of Fame. But I like the idea that the Hall of Fame, shout out Devin Hester, devastated he missed out. But same thing, the fact that there is a market for those guys who everyone knew, everyone loved, they had the numbers and the stats, they just didn't win a bunch of rings.
Dan Marino.
Yeah. Was he not going to the Hall of Fame? Was that ever on someone's mind? I doubt it. So I think this sort of, I don't know, I mean, not that you can take too much, Richard Sherman says, without a grain of salt these days.
Yeah.
But I just thought, also, I don't like current players coming out and roasting other current players. Besides what they said to Eli Apple, that was pretty funny after the game. But I don't get this new age thing where you just come out and start roasting another guy, especially as you say. It wasn't as if Stafford stood there and was like, hey, can I go to the hall now? Like, am I ready?
Yeah.
This is just chat that someone else has started bringing up.
Unnecessarily personal.
Yeah, just to attack him. And Stafford,
to remind us, people was like, oh, if I can hear Richard Sherman speak, that means he's relevant.
He must still be playing. He might go to the Hall of Fame as well.
He has to.
Yeah.
Legion of Boom.
Let's move on a bit away from all of the Super Bowl. We've got through some good content there. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. What now for them? What does the next season and the years after look like for Cincy? Was this a one-off blip? They just managed to get a bunch of things right. Everyone was happy to ride this fairy tale wave. Or do you think they can legitimately go back and contest again next year?
Let's break it down. They won their division. Can they do that again next year? Absolutely. A lot of upheaval in Pittsburgh, a lot of uncertainty in Cleveland and Baltimore. It's like if you squint and you're kind of drunk, you can see the idea of a good football team. But for whatever reason, they haven't got it done for the last 2 seasons. So they can get through their division. Can they catch the Bills and or the Chiefs unawares again? No.
Yeah.
They'll be more than ready next year, which will be great. Is it impossible that they get through next year? Well, not as impossible as it was this year.
Yeah.
So can they? Yes. That's why they play the games, Chris. That's why they play them.
I think more of a worry for them would be if they do not improve that offensive line. They're going to deal with a more serious issue than not making the playoffs, which is they're not going to have a quarterback because Joe Burrow cannot take 70 sacks a year.
He won't play 10 seasons.
Year on year. Definitely not. And
I don't think he comes back out in that game if it's week 2.
No.
He copped a bad knee injury in the 4th quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're still waiting to hear what the actual upshot of that was.
Yep.
What about the Rams? Is that it? Rams going back-to-back, 3-peat?
Well,
they've got this team built, as we've heard many times. They're all in, yes.
The first thing I mentioned on one of my group threads, NFL fantasy related, was the Rams will be the team of the 2020s. It's like you don't get an opportunity to say that outside of immediately after the Super Bowl. So I thought I'd throw that out there. And then I was like, is that an actual possibility? And so all it is, because of McVay. In McVay we trust. He got Goff to a Super Bowl. He won one with Stafford. He can do it in multiple ways. Super run heavy with Gurley the first time we got there, and that's why we weren't competitive in the Super Bowl, because we couldn't run it.
Yep.
And then Cup and Stafford heavy in this Super Bowl and got it done. So there will be lots of moving pieces. A lot of our good players are in their 30s or coming near 30. Cup's 27, Donald 30, Stafford 34. Ramsey's got to be 28, 29. But with that said, those ages suggest there's a couple more years left of this window being ajar. And I can see the Rams making a good push for the NFC Championship game. And,
Absolutely.
And as you know, anything can happen from there.
That's the thing for me. It's you effectively only have to assess the other NFC teams. If they should make the playoffs. That part should be relatively easy enough, even though they're coming from a strong division. But then it's like you have to look around. There's so much uncertainty. Tampa will now fall way out of that chat unless they go crazy again to pick up another free agent quarterback. Then you've got Green Bay, also a lot of uncertainty. Then you've got the Saints, who are supposed to be really good.
We don't know who their quarterback is or their coach.
Exactly. And then who else? I feel like I'm forgetting.
Arizona, we don't know if that coach and or quarterback will be there in 18 months' time.
Niners, same thing, especially quarterback, what they're going to do.
I told you 5 weeks, when I told you the day Brady retired, that there is an outside chance he'll play for the 49ers next year.
I like that as a tip. I also have this funny feeling that maybe we're not done with Mr. Brady just yet. But
he'd be at home. He will be close to the family.
Yeah.
And he said he's stepping away. He didn't drop the R-bomb.
That's true. The wording was very careful. And the fact that, compared
he said last week, never say never.
Yeah. Compared to living in Tampa, to go and live on the West Coast somewhere nice.
And they'd be Super Bowl favourites on that team.
Yeah.
It's just like, but he can't move. Like, never can Jimmy G.
And the thing is now, though, he probably only would have one more year. So it's a massive gamble for a big contract and then just have to do it all again next year.
Unless he threw 45.
Of course, yeah. Let's do some way too early picks for next season. This is the best time, obviously. Let's go bolters or teams you think are looking to make big strides going into next year. Who's someone that'll shock you?
The easy answer is the LA Chargers. Okay. Just because they didn't make the playoffs this year. But that feels like it would have been a more appropriate answer for the start of this season. It just didn't happen.
Yep.
Another one, the Giants, just because, like, surely they can't be as bad as they have for the last half a decade. And I'll be curious to see how Zach Wilson goes with the Jets next season.
Yeah, I'll talk about my beloved Dolphins then, I guess. I think there's a chance. I like what the new coach appointment was the best possible case after firing someone that we all loved in Brian Flores. So I'm excited for that. In terms of an actual answer with some sort of weight for you, I think I'm looking forward to seeing the Saints again, and I'm looking forward to see what the Panthers do. I think if the Panthers pick up a good enough quarterback, Cam Newton was not the answer, then I think they still have enough people around them to make McCaffrey work, if he can stay healthy, which we've said every year.
Yeah.
Who still sucks? Who's still going to suck for next year and beyond? I'm happy to go first. I'll say the Texans. Can't see a way out for them unless Deshaun miraculously gets cleared of every wrongdoing he's ever done.
It's not a bad answer. I know every season that Tomlin's had suggests that this is the wrong answer, but I'm going to go Pittsburgh.
Okay. I'm also going to throw the Falcons in there. I don't know. I seem to have had a vendetta against the Falcons this year in the pod.
The Falcons just like the best shit team of all time.
Yeah. They finished, again, like 8-9 or something.
Yeah, and they weren't far away. Like, they were in the chat for a playoff run with 2 weeks to go, but you look at their stats, like, they were just bad everywhere. Matt Ryan and the coaching staff kept that team afloat last year.
Who might win?
Okay, we'll go easy answers. Your Chiefs, your Bills, your Rams, they're going to be in the chat. If you're looking for a smoky, Cincy again. And here's one. Now, this is dumb, but I like him. Baker Mayfield. He was injured all year. Now, go back to the year before. They had the Chiefs on the run in the playoffs at home. I think it was in the division round. They were a chance of winning that game because of Baker Mayfield. He threw a buttload of touchdowns in the wild card round versus Steelers last year. That's the guy who you can choose to remember, not the guy that was injured, who was playing despite that it was hurting his capital, right? It was hurting him playing, both financially and physically.
Yeah.
Right? But he kept on playing because he's tough. Now, can he still throw the ball? Probably. Still young.
Still a gunslinger.
I'll be watching Cleveland closely next year.
I think the fact that I watched too many games this year from Cleveland that were 10-13 and 9-10 indicate to me that I can't see it, but I would love to see it. I think we've all got a soft spot for Baker. I'm going to say, I'm not sure if this counts as a smoky or if it's just a tip for who. There's not enough credit for one of the greatest coaches in the league, Mike Vrabel, and his Tennessee Titans team, who finished first in the AFC. Nobody saw that coming. I think the fact that we haven't even mentioned them at all, I think they're deserving of that at least. They'll be back. If Derrick Henry's fit for a whole year.
The Rams got lucky in that they played Bengals in the Super Bowl, because not only the Bills, not only the Chiefs, but the Titans would have been a bad matchup for the Rams. Their defensive unit. Although they do like to blitz, and Stafford's good against the blitz, you're right. Vrabel does need to get mentioned, because if it wasn't for a couple or a few untimely turnovers, they could have had a playoff run that went much, much deeper.
Well, Teddy, that seems like a pretty perfect place for us to
On Vrabel?
On Vrabel. We've talked about Super Bowl. We may as well finish with the Tennessee Titans.
Let's go.
It's been a fantastic year. I want to take some time to thank you for all of your hard work and help you've given me getting the podcast set up this year. It's been so much fun. To all of our listeners, to everyone who's watched on every week, anyone who's written in or given us comments, we really do appreciate that.
And our guests too. Thank you very much to the boys.
Mangini,
Speedy.
Mr. Mangini, Speedy came on as well. Luke Keary and
Steve May. And the doctor.
And the doctor, Dr. Quinn, one of the most important. If there are any other of you listening professional athletes and you would like a chance to come on the well-renowned Onside Kick, just reach out to us.
Yeah. We'll weigh it. We'll see how much clout you've got.
Thank you very much. That's the final word. Ted, congratulations to the Los Angeles Rams, Super Bowl 56 champions. Much love to you and to all of our listeners.